Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. My name is Chris Bradshaw and this is the WeAgile's human-centered podcast, WeCast. Today, I'm delighted to say we've got Jana Dowling, the CEO and founder of the 888 Collective and also Arkeo. Arkeo is a mental fitness brand. It also empowers individuals and organizations to take care of their mental fitness, and her tracking app that she designed and built herself, My Arkeo, is out there in the world trying to make the world a little bit better and mentally more happy. And I'd like to welcome Jana to the podcast. Nice to meet you. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Do you want me to explain a little bit about how I developed the tech?
I would love you to set some context as to how you've got from A to B. That would be super helpful.
Okay, cool. Well,
Great.
A starts quite a long time ago. It was about 3 years ago. I suffered a severe depressive episode. So I was under 24-hour watch as a high-risk suicide patient for about 5 weeks. Wasn't the best time of my life. But as I was recovering and coming out of it, I saw the impact that it had on everyone around me. So it devastated everyone. It wasn't just me that it impacted. And I knew I wasn't well enough to work. So instead, I kind of took my recovery on like a job and I started tracking everything I was doing. I tracked all my behaviors, my patterns, my decisions, and how they were impacting my recovery and my symptoms. And I basically ended up using the data that I was collecting to make decisions, and I recovered really quickly, got back to work, ended up sharing that tracking system through the 888 Collective, which I did not say out loud enough before I named.
It's a tricky one.
It's hard.
Yeah, right?
It's almost as difficult as Arkeo.
Nearly.
I think it's a run with me. So then I helped people with mental health issues get back into work using the tracking system,
Right.
and then I turned that tracking system into tech so that everyone can use it.
Great, perfect. And what really resonated with me was that it's a very human-centered product, which is super great, and that's how we're trying to focus on from our side. But also it's a thing that is in the startup world, which also is not an easy world to be in, although it may look like it on the surface.
Yeah.
Maybe you find it easier, maybe not. But I think from my point of view, it'd be really great also to understand how you found that journey as well, because I think for me, the biggest thing around startups and entrepreneurship and founders is it has this kind of glossy sheen to it that everyone looks on. And I think things like the Facebook movie and things like that make it look like it's hoodies, running around in flip-flops, and eventually you'll make it and raise all this money.
Yeah.
I myself have been in that world a lot, and I appreciate it's definitely not that. But it would be super great to understand how you found that world to get from kind of obviously the hard times through to now you're an entrepreneur yourself, which is very grown up and sounds very professional.
I know it does sound very professional. That's the thing, is it sounds professional. It doesn't necessarily mean I am.
But everyone is these days, right? Everyone's a founder or an entrepreneur. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's a really exciting time because I think now you can be an entrepreneur. I mean, I'm 36 now, but when I was in my 20s, that was not an option. You got a job, you kept that job, and you did what you were told. So now I believe it's really exciting. I think my lack of knowledge of everything has been the biggest advantage I've ever had.
Yeah.
So I don't have a degree. I've never started my own business. I've never raised seed investment before. I've never worked in tech. I have literally no qualifications to do what I'm doing right now. But like you said, I built something that I needed for myself that worked, that I then shared with others that then worked. And now I've ended up where I am. But I think because I didn't really expect anything, I never really, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's been a battle. Like, it is a battle to get stuff done.
Yeah, of course, I know the feeling.
The only thing I'll ever say to anyone, because who am I to tell anyone what to do or how to do what they're doing? Sure. But the only advice I would ever give is work hard. Like, everything that you do, if you take the next step, you'll get there. And I guess because I didn't have that knowledge or that understanding or any expectation, I sort of never got to that point where I've been disheartened, but never to that point where I was like, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
So
it's sad to be disheartened, but they're the worst things in life. I imagine. Yeah.
But also the way I kind of look at it is like, you have to enjoy it. It's playing a game. Everything I've done in my life, I've kind of learned how to do and then figured it out and whatever and cracked on. Like, I've never sort of really studied something for a really long period of time and then gone and done it. I've always been like, I want to do that job. I'm going to go see if I can do it. And then I've seen whether I can or can't, or whether I enjoy it or I don't, and then I've moved on. Yeah. But I think if you look at an entrepreneurship as playing a game, you have to get to the first level, and there's always a really quick way to get there the first time. but it's quick, it's boring, you don't really learn that much. But if you try and like collect coins or kill things or go down tunnels or whatever, you'll get extra points, collect gold or whatever it is in that game. But you're going to have to die like 15 times to then complete it that way. And that's kind of how I see every single step of what I've done as an entrepreneur. You just got to play it, get to the next level, and then start again. But like expect to fail and enjoy it, because actually, if you don't,
what's the point?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm glad you said that, because I think, from where WeAgile's come from, it's definitely from a place of we had a sense there was a better way of doing things and a new way of doing things, and especially for creatives. I think our mission at the minute is trying to realign incentives for creatives to ensure they get paid fairly for the work they contribute to the world. And I think creatives are great at what they do, but I think at the same time, they're not so good at certain things like commercials or the business aspect, or sometimes even their own well-being inside an ecosystem, especially in startups, because the pressure's on, they have to do things, there's deadlines, and they don't understand sometimes how to deal with their own kind of, like you say, mental fitness. Which again is something I want to get into in a second, because that's definitely something I want to learn more of myself. But yeah, for us it's really important to actually understand, again, people-centric way of looking at this. It's not just about a buyout in a startup, it's not just about being a cool product, like I'm going to build the next Uber, like everyone says. It's all about, like you said, and you said it then yourself, it's about a problem to solve, a passion, and the impetus to kind of just keep going, keep trying, and just jumping into things. And I think that's definitely where, I know from kind of my side personally, that's been a big part of where our journey's been. So it's really great to hear that's the same thing. And I think the mental fitness parts of this, I mean, I'm going to put this out there now so everyone understands the difference. I'm sure you get it all the time. There's mental health and there's mental fitness. I think I know the difference, but I'd be super happy if you could tell me what.
I was going to say shoot.
Well, I will shoot just to kind of give it a go. So mental health is something that is kind of unavoidably a thing you can't do. You inherit it effectively, and you have to deal with it by proxy, by biology, I believe. And it's treatable, there's things you can do for it, but it's a hidden thing that is just there, and you have to deal with it like you have, I don't know, like a skin irritation or something like that. Mental fitness, and this is only because I've just come back from a kind of a well-being place away in Mexico where it's all like, spirituality and yoga. It's like, it's about protecting and being physically fit, but mentally fit too. So it's almost like the body and mind both need equal exercise, I think is the way I'm going to put it. And that's something I definitely learned from being away as well. It's protecting your energy or time, or however you want to put it, or mental fitness, as you put it, I think, which is a lot more relatable. Energy seems quite kind of spiritual. But it's about protecting that and using it wisely and making sure you're always using it to the most effective way without compromising your own well-being. Yeah. Is my take on it.
Basically.
How far is that?
Yeah, it's really good, actually. It separates it out really well. Mental health is actually a person's condition with regards to their psychological and emotional well-being. So that's what mental health actually means. That's the definition of it. So all of us have mental health. It's just that right now, if you use the words mental health, everyone just thinks of a mental health issue or a mental health diagnosis. I'm going to let Prince Harry and Prince William try and break that stigma because that's a big job and I don't really want to get involved in that. My definition of mental fitness is pretty much what you were talking about. So it's the same as physical fitness, but it's for your brain. We all have it. It goes up and down at different points of our lives, days, weeks, months, year, whatever. It goes up and down in all of us. And it's impacted by your lifestyle, your life experiences, and world events. So that's how I define mental fitness.
So I tried your app recently, just to be on point with this, my Arkeo, and it was worrying. So I was like, not the app itself, but me filling it in, because it talks about how much coffee do you drink, how much alcohol do you drink, and I was filling it in. I was like, I could lie here, but I didn't. And I'm filling this in, and again, going back to the startup thing and founding new companies, that pretty much drives a lot of people. I believe from the stress, they do it in different ways, but I know a lot of people who have done. They either drink coffee religiously because it's the thing to do, or just drink quite heavily because it's quite stressful. It's a nice release. I don't know if that's something you've kind of had to deal with from your talks or people you've met applying what you do. Because I know beforehand you was coaching, so that's super helpful too.
So basically, I don't think you should abstain from anything. Like everything in moderation, including moderation, obviously apart from like crazy stuff that you shouldn't be taking and it's illegal and all that stuff. But like basically you're an adult, live your life the way you want to live it. But understand the impact of your choices and how that impacts you and where you want to get to in life. If it's getting in the way of your goals, your relationships, whatever, do something about it. Don't carry on through life, letting every company out there have huge amounts of data on you so they can sell you stuff and they know your habits, your behaviors and patterns, and know nothing about yourself. To me, that's bonkers. Really, we should really be understanding ourselves and taking responsibility for it. So if you want to go out and have a drink, enjoy yourself. But if you're somebody that has a drink and then 3 days of anxiety and not being able to do your job properly, or you have arguments with your partner, something bad happens from it, maybe don't do it that much, or maybe put limits in place and change it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I think about
Moderation.
that. Yeah, and it's like, if you're an entrepreneur and you're building a company, you should be in charge of yourself and your life. You just should be. Like, you should be in charge of everything. Every decision you make is your responsibility. Every place you end up is because of the decisions you've made. It's not because somebody else didn't provide a service in the right way. You chose that person to provide that service. And if they didn't do it in the right way, you may not have communicated right. But if they didn't because you did, they weren't the right person to ask to do it. So at the end of the day, everything has to be your responsibility.
Like it. Brutal. Let's get it sorted.
Yeah.
Done. Yeah, I mean, I'm asking this because my business partner kindly pulled together some facts around this on the premise of data. I'm not going to profess to know those off by heart. So that would be ambitious. But I mean, effectively, Michael Freeman, MD at University of California, 1 in 4 people will suffer from some sort of mental health issue. But founders of startups or entrepreneurs per se are 50% more likely to report to have these issues. And there's a list here of like 2 times more to suffer from depression, 2 times more to suffer from ADHD and substance abuse and all this kind of stuff. And I think what was really interesting was like these facts are quite harsh and kind of, but maybe real. I mean, it seems they're very much real. But what was really interesting to me was the work you're doing. Seems like it's a really portable way and a valid way to help people on the go deal with what's going on in their lives. And like you say, take control of mental fitness and put a term to it as well, which I think is another thing that is not done enough from my point of view. There isn't a term that is like, how do you look after your mind versus I'll just go to the gym every day.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, we should be tracking our mental fitness in the same way we do our physical fitness. And everyone should be doing it because we all have it. And we all have different strains and stresses. And I think the reason why people talk about mental health issues and how complicated they are is because they go into the academic bias of it. They talk about neuroscience, they talk about therapy and medication and things that only qualified humans can deal with. But actually, a huge amount of things that are connected to being positive, like having positive mental fitness, are your lifestyle choices. And I think the reason why entrepreneurs and the creative industry have a lot of difficulty managing it, maybe sometimes have more of those pressures, is because they actually have less structure in their work days because they have to be more creative, which is brilliant. But the knock-on effect of that isn't that, you know, that sort of hard line that I just said, it's your responsibility, deal with it. You know, you're not encouraged to maybe have that line of sight so much when you are developing the creative side of your life. But I think also we're human and we love to hide and shy away from that responsibility or the, you know, the negative feedback or criticism or critique that you need to give yourself. You know, you have to constantly evolve and look at yourself and become a better version of yourself. And to do that, I think you need a really easy way of collecting all the data and then seeing how it all is impacted. Because there's lots of different points. So like your food, your exercise, your mood, your sleep, your alcohol,
like
caffeine. You know, there's so many things you have to take into consideration, which is why it's good to have it in a tracking system that shows you it back.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I mean, data definitely will help. I mean, I think from what I've seen is one of the ills, and again, just on the lean of the kind of creative industries, like I think, and it's changing now because it has to, but I think a lot of people who work in that space are generally sold as time. So that's something I saw, which was, I mean, it's worked for a long time and it's fine. It's done its thing for decades. But I feel like that time is starting to change now because it's become more of a commodity and people are going offshore or people can find talent elsewhere. It's much easier. So I think when you boil it down to people's time and their profession that they spent years developing their craft into something that is obviously excellent, but then say to somebody, you have so much time to be creative, do it, and there's a deadline, otherwise the client's going to come and shout at us. I think that could be part of the ill of not just the kind of agency world, but almost the linking back to the mental fitness thing where you're getting all this pressure put onto you. And it's like, fine if you're in that building doing the work, but when you're out of that, what do you do for yourself? Because you may leave that still thinking of work, still being stressed, because the pressures are quite phenomenal. And again, from my background, I've been in those situations where I've seen it happen to lots of people. So I think for me, it's really great to sort of see that there's alternatives out there that are addressing that. And I think you're at the forefront.
But again, I swear, it just goes back to responsibility. Like if you're a creative and you're working in an environment, you're working for a company that's pushing you too hard, that's not giving you enough time to be creative, go find another company. If you're badass at what you do, people will hire you.
Yep.
You know, like don't live in a flat that means that you have such high expenses that you know, get really afraid every month that you're not going to pay your bills. Like change your life. I've spent 2.5 years basically earning no money. I have downscaled, downsized. I don't buy clothes. You know, like I sewed a hole that was in my trouser pocket yesterday. You know, like that's what my life is because I want to build this organization. Every single person has the ability to change their lives, to turn it into what they want it to be. You just have to make the tough choices. So I don't really think you can sit there and be like, oh, well, my work pushes me too hard. Well, push back. Say no. Change your life. Do something. Don't just allow that to become an excuse to not be able to manage yourself.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And definitely a trend I've seen is the best people, they end up doing just that. And they go, do you know what? I'm going to become a freelancer, start my own company, do whatever I want because I can and I've got the experience. I think that is a really great way to look at things, and it's taking, like you say, the reins of their destiny. And that's a super important thing, I think, for people's career and life, but also, again, their well-being.
Yeah.
How we work as well, we actually look at bringing together these creatives. We generally just work with a collective, we call it, of creatives around the world, and we bring them together to solve a challenge together, and then we then disband when it's done, and we come back to something else, and it's super fluid, super nice, and I've said the word super 100 times, but it's fine.
But I think that's awesome as well because of diversity. Like you hear so many creative things that go 100%. Out there, and there's so many adverts that go out there that offend so many different cultures based on the fact that the creative team isn't diverse, and it's had to, even though it's had to go through loads of levels, it hasn't. So I think being able to pull people in from different places and having that sort of protection around it, from the sense of, you know, you're creating that space that's safer and basically better and more productive. You know, that diversity I think is important, like super important to any company now. I think if you're not a diverse company,
you've got concern.
You've got a finite amount of time to keep living.
Absolutely. I think that's definitely what we've experienced already from running this kind of model. It's like you get a lot of the best people who want to do good work, and a lot of diverse people, especially from international as well. And also, I think you just play nicer together because you've all got an aligned mission. It's not like I have to be sat in an office and I have to be doing the same thing every day. And it's quite liberating, I think, for people if there is a mechanisms to do that. And I suppose as well, what blends what your world is now and what we're trying to do is when we go into companies, we say to them, okay, we will help you rapidly get a plan together. We'll get shit done. We'll help you get to X, and then we'll help you hire people because eventually, you know, like a fitness instructor, will make sure you're self-sufficient. Maybe a mental fitness instructor as well at some point. And then we can then move away and bring in people that takes over what we've been doing, and therefore they've got the best benefit from our time. But again, it's about a blend of skill and operational stuff we bring. But I think bringing people in is a very complicated piece as well, especially in terms of like how do they cope with the environment? Would they fit with this team? So I think it's really good to understand as well from what you've done in the past with your tutoring, your coaching. Sounds better, doesn't it? Tutoring.
Same.
Yeah. So how have you applied that in the past to kind of? I mean, I know from history you've brought people on who've had other kind of issues with their mental health, and you've given them jobs, and they've got jobs after that, which is a great story. So how is your talks and your coaching now resonating back into the team or people you're working with?
So originally I turned, when I had my social enterprise, I basically sold tea and toasties out of a shed and hired anyone that had a mental health issue that came to me that wanted a job. I paid them for their time, I taught them my tracking system, and they left me to go and get real jobs. So it was working. So I then turned what I was teaching them into a course that I delivered, and it was for free, and I got referrals from the NHS and job centres and everything. It was really cool. And we went through that development course that I built, that, you know, I actually made like book things you had to fill in and homework and stuff. Like it was actually quite sort of structured. And then at the end of that, I would basically go and convince an East London restaurant to let me pre-sell tickets to an event, and then I would fully staff that with my grads. So a lot of the people I was working with hadn't worked for like 2, 3, 4 years sometimes, and so they'd get their first paid shift back in work. So all that training really taught me how to present. It taught me a lot about what people who have severe mental health issues experience, because I didn't have any criteria for you to join my class. You could have any issue, be from any place, any borough in London. There was no, limitations on that. So I had incredibly diverse classes to work with. And it really showed me how many humans don't really understand the basic bolt-ons of, if you drink 5 cans of Coke a day, it is a lot of caffeine, and that is going to have an impact on your body. To also how little people actually knew about their mental health issues, even though they had diagnoses. So it really taught me how to research and understand the issues that were happening in the world where 1 in 4 of us have a diagnosis. But then I started to bring that training out into work environments to really start to break down, I guess, that stigma thing of like, God, so-and-so's depressed and on medication. I'm like, I'm on medication. Like, I don't need I take the same medication as somebody with epilepsy.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, it's so simple. Like, I have a diagnosis, I'm bipolar. It means that I have to pay attention to my mental fitness more than the average person, in the same way that someone with diabetes has to pay attention to their sugar levels. So I then sort of took my training into offices to really start to sort of put people back in their place with people who are sort of having that sort of judgy opinion. I'm like, dude, who are you to roll your eyes at anybody? Who are you to judge anybody? Like, if you're educated about this, you will have no issue with it. But it's to try and encourage people to really speak up and be honest, because we're not less powerful because you have a mental health diagnosis. You're less powerful if you allow your symptoms to take over your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's the same for anything.
Yeah.
It's the same for anything. Like, if someone's running and they, I don't know, pull a hamstring or break their leg and they continue to run on it and they don't go to the doctors, then that is their problem that they're not solving,
The key message here, isn't there? It's like, it's your responsibility. You need to deal with that, which I think is a very good point. I think, it's a thing I've experienced with people who are quite dissatisfied with life or something that's not right in their life, like whether it be work or where they live, or and they just don't do anything about it. I think that's a very good, solid point to make. Like, it's your responsibility. I think where you've got to now is pretty impressive, because you've obviously got yourself part funded now, so in the bootstrapping mode, as I was saying before, which is exciting time. So where do you foresee the brand going and the product? Because from our world, we do a lot with digital product all the time, startups. So it's beyond the interest in just the mental wellness and fitness. The other side of it too is definitely a passion of mine. So it'd be great to hear like where it's going in the future as well, because like I say, it's your responsibility and you're gonna own that, I'm sure. Yeah, well,
it's really exciting. We've got loads of things happening. So we're basically using the next couple of months as almost our test market in the UK. I'm talking to the government in Hong Kong, so we're turning the app into Chinese and simple Chinese, hopefully in the beginning of the year, to become part of a 2-year scientific study out there. We're talking sort of 2 different entities globally right now. I mean, our main aim is to get 1 billion people on this planet tracking their mental fitness in the same way they do their physical fitness by 2050.
Punchy ambition.
So
that's good.
It's punchy, but this again, it's very English for people to go,
yeah, of course.
But I'm on a global tech accelerator where I'm having conversations with people right now who own unicorns, and I get one-on-one access to them. And I think this is the thing. This is what digital is amazing for. I'm on a global tech accelerator for the next 4 weeks, where I'm in lectures 5 days a week, which is a nightmare because I don't have time. But the contacts you can make and the acceleration, the progress you can make and what you can learn in that time is amazing. So I have big plans, but they're actually a possibility. And right now they are a reality. I mean, we've got our first client. We haven't even finished building the product.
That's pretty impressive.
And I think, and I am actually proud of that. I'm not smug about it. I'm just proud. Like, I've worked really, really hard to make this happen. And I will continue to work really, really hard to make sure that this accelerates and spreads as far as I want it to. But, we do want this to be a global app, and it is that simple. I think what I've built is so simple, it's kind of laughable. Like, it's really so simple that it can be sort of basically...
Oh, yeah, it's super quick. Yeah, I jumped on it the other day and it took me seconds to fill the whole thing out, and I'm on.
Well, that's
tracking.
Exactly, and that's the beta version. That doesn't even do anything really. It just tells you your score and top line data. The one that's coming out on the 1st of October lets you compare all your symptoms, all your behaviours.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And it shows you all your data back, so that you can actually start seeing patterns and trends and it does that for you as well. So
yeah, okay.
It's exciting times.
It sounds it, yeah, actually, yeah. I'm just conscious of your time as well, but I think as well, with where you're going with this, sounds great. Like, I definitely believe in the product itself, because I think that's got so, like I say, it helps people. So that's what's better than that, you know. I guess in terms of like the final thoughts on today and what we've been discussing. I mean, for me, definitely, I can sense from your view, it's, you know, work hard, own it, do what you care about. Don't just satisfy for the mediocrity of just, you know, being okay with things.
Yeah.
Be excited about things and follow your passions.
Yeah.
Is there any kind of final thoughts and sign off that, you know, you would like to portray to the world?
Yeah, I guess there's a quote, if I can remember it properly, by Václav Havel, and it's vision is not enough. It must be combined with venture. It's not enough to stare up the steps. We must step up the stairs. And for me, that is really true from an entrepreneurial point of view. You know, I have a huge vision, and most people go like that when I do it. I will make it happen because I'm focused on, you know, my launch, on making sure every button on my app is what I want it to do, and all of those things. That's where my focus is. And you have to take those steps. And again, going back to, you know, don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to look stupid. Like, do it. Look stupid, fail, and then build something better.
Absolutely. Learn from failure, embrace it. It's your friend.
Pretty much.
Where can people find you as well? Because, I mean, I know personally you're on probably every social media there is, I've seen, but where would you be your preferred method of engagement?
Find me on LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn a lot right now. Is where my main focus is. You can find me on Instagram as well. Instagram's more like you'll see what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis with the business, whereas LinkedIn is sort of more focused on work, I guess.
Professional,
yeah, exactly.
Professional networking.
It's a bit more professional. And then I do have Twitter and all that stuff, but I don't use it.
It's too many things, right?
I don't
too many
use
things.
it, yeah. But LinkedIn is the place if you want to get hold of me, and just drop me a message if you have any questions or anything.
Okay. Well, Jana, thanks very much for your time and your knowledge and for bringing this product into the world. It's definitely a thing that we want to keep an eye on further, and looking forward to the V1 as well.
Yep.
I was actually super excited about the beta, thinking that was going to be changing my life, but if V1's come in, that could be even better. But I think thank you again for your time. And as for the podcast, that is episode 1 done, and I'm signing off, and thank you all for listening.